Swashbucklers, you're listening to Under the Crossbones. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show. Welcome to episode 96. Fun fact about the number 96, there are no fun facts about the number 96. That is our fun fact for today. 96 is a pretty boring number. I found some mathematical stuff. I found some Highway 96 things, and just nothing interesting. So, instead, let's all just, after we're done with the podcast here, let's all just go listen to the song 96 Tears by Question Mark and the Mysterians, and we'll call it a day right there. My guest on the show today is Del Merritt of the Sea Dogs. They are a New Jersey outfit, and they started out doing music, and now they do music, and they do historical reenactment and educational stuff and all sorts of good things, and we're going to dig into that, all that, plus what it's like to be a pirate in the wilds of New Jersey. So, fun interview. That's coming up in a second with Del Merritt. I am coming to you today from Medford, Oregon, where I am doing some gigs with the, and I'm knocking on the table right there. I'm doing some gigs with the always funny Alicia Wood, and we're having a great time out here on the road. There's more dates coming up. Let's go. We'll hit the dates pretty quick here. Wednesday, June 21st, that's coming up day after this comes out. I will be at Seven Cedars Casino in Sequim, Washington. Friday, June the 23rd, I'll be at 7 Nightclub in Bend, Oregon. Saturday, June 24th, Mobster Mike's in Bremerton, Washington. And Wednesday, June 28th, back in California at Massays in Walnut Creek, California. So those are the dates, the tour dates coming up for the rest of this month. If you want to find out when I'm coming to a town near you, go to underthecrossbones.com, click on the tour dates button, and you can see where I'm going to be all around the country. And there's lots of stuff coming up all around the country. So, like I said, here in Medford, staying at a hotel. This is kind of an odd hotel because their first floor is sort of below ground level. And that's always where they stick the comedians, right? So the top of my windowsill is level with the dirt. So it's almost like I'm almost in an underground bunker. Almost. Not quite enough underground to be safe from a zombie invasion, but I can see dirt if I just stand at the windowsill, and I can look very closely at all the little bugs and things creeping and crawling around there. It's an odd-shaped room, and so I'm down here, and I can see people's feet as they walk by. Picture the if you ever watched Laverne and Shirley, right, and they did the outside shot of their little window that was sitting like right against the sidewalk right there. That's kind of what this room feels like. My little half underground bunker. They're doing all sorts of repairs on the hotel at the moment, so you may hear some drilling happening outside the room. I turned the air conditioner off, and I had to turn the air conditioner off before I went to sleep last night because it makes an ungodly screeching sound. I don't know what it is. There's probably a belt fan or something that's loose in there, but it sounds like the air conditioner is chewing up squirrels, and that's not a pleasant sound to sleep to. So I slept in a little bit. Fortunately, it wasn't too warm last night, but yeah, it was either be warm or listening to squirrels being maimed all night long. So that's where I'm hanging out, and it's life on the road, man. And that's what we have to deal with sometimes. They're not all palatial. 96% of them are not palatial is what that means. Oh, boy. So we're going to get to that Del Merritt interview here in just a second. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to come and join us over on Facebook at facebook.com/underthecrossbones, where we've been having some fun. On Twitter, we're at /undercrossbones. No the, because it's too long for Twitter. And be sure that you are subscribed to the show through iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I use Podcast Addict. That's a popular one. So make sure that you subscribe, and then you get every new episode just downloaded right to your phone, your device, your Roku, whatever you're listening to podcasts on. I don't even know if people listen to podcasts on Roku. That might be odd. And now there's one of you out there is listening on a Roku and screaming at me, but that's okay. Welcome. I welcome everybody, whatever your streaming persuasion. That's going to become a politically correct thing at some point, isn't it? And, of course, all the show notes for this episode can be found at underthecrossbones.com/096. If you want to help support the show a little bit financially, that would be awesome of you. Just go to underthecrossbones.com/support. There's a little PayPal box there. You can donate whatever amount of money you feel, just a one-off donation, whatever you feel is appropriate. There's an Amazon banner there. You click that Amazon banner. You go buy yourself something nice at Amazon. Amazon kicks me back a few pennies, and that also helps. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, that's cheap and easy. Go to underthecrossbones.com/support. Contact me from there, and we will hook it up. All right, let's dig in. You ready to hear from Del Merritt? We're gonna trek on over to New Jersey, on the opposite side of the country from where I am right now. I'm in Oregon. Did I tell you? I'm in Medford. I'm in Medford, Oregon. Medford is one of those places I go every year. And it's an interesting town. I had a Luigi sandwich. That's why I come to Medford, is for Luigi's sandwiches. They make these Italian grinders that are just amazing. And I come here to see my friend Doug, too. And to do shows, I guess, That's the lovely part of being a comedian. Every town I go to, I'm going to find some good food and some good friends. That's the best part. All right, I'm going to shut up now. How about we hear this interview with Del Merritt from New Jersey, right? Yeah, New Jersey. We're going to head to Jersey. We're going to head to Jersey. All right, here we go. This is Del Merritt from the Sea Dogs. Enjoy. So you're the leader of the Sea Dogs, New Jersey, and
That's right. Yep.
Tell us you guys do a whole bunch of stuff. So tell us a little bit about what the group does.
Okay, well, we're pretty unique in the sense of we have sort of three main things that we do. The one part is that we do traditional seafaring music, sea shanties, that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then we also do living history, which can entail anything from just talking to people, giving demonstrations, to showing people, how different weaponry works or different uses of different objects on ships and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Explaining to people what pirates are really like as opposed to the Disney films and stuff like that.
Sure.
And then actually every once in a while engaging in battle if we're lucky enough to do that.
That's
so we
great.
kind of hit all the bases, really.
So you are sort of general pirates for hire in the New Jersey area. So let's talk about that, because we were just talking about it before we started recording here, that New Jersey is not exactly a hotbed of the pirate scene.
Not really.
What do you have around you? Yeah, what do you have around you?
As far as pirate festivals, there's no big ones. They're all very small, little, usually at historical locations. Like this weekend we got coming up, Tuckerton Seaport is a, it's sort of a museum kind of place. And they're having a pirate festival. It's a Privateers and Pirate Festival. And that's kind of the fare that you get in New Jersey. Every once in a while somebody will try to start like a pirate festival, and it just never really takes off. Something always goes wrong.
I wonder why. Why do you think it is? Why do you think it hasn't clicked up there?
I got no answer for that, honestly. I mean, I know a lot of the things that the groups that are trying to do it may just not have enough money to do it. And so, they try a bunch of different locations and stuff, and usually it just never really pans out. Probably down in places like Florida, you say, I want to start a pirate festival, and every town is throwing money at you saying, well, let's see if we can do that. I don't think that's what's going on in Jersey.
Yeah, that's interesting, because there's a lot of pirate history in that part of the country with your harbors and rivers and things like that in New York and New Jersey. There was plenty of pirate activity.
Absolutely. I mean, we can match most of the stories from other states, right down the line. I mean, you've got pirate activity going all the way up to Canada, down to Florida, but nobody seems to remember the stuff in between, or even the Canadian stuff. We've got newspaper clippings of, this pirate being chased past New York, and this, these pirates being chased into the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. All this kind of stuff. People hear about Blackbeard blockading Charleston, and for like a week and
right.
Getting all the money and stuff that he wanted out of that. But they don't really remember that he did the same thing on the Delaware River.
Yeah.
And he probably made a lot more money, because I think when he did Charleston, he really was just looking for medicine.
Yeah.
Medicine and a good time.
Right.
So yeah, they kind of forget that, Philadelphia was this huge port at the time, and everybody coming in and going out for a week had to stop and pay toll to this guy. So
wow, crazy.
We've got that story as well.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite pirate history story from your area that you like to tell folks when you're out?
Probably most of it centers around Blackbeard, because he's kind of like my favorite pirate, and the fact that he did operate around here so many so many different places, and he, passed by a bunch of times. He had favorite haunts in southern New Jersey and in Philly. So this area was really kind of a favorite place for him. One of the few pirate festivals that we do have, again, it's a very small affair, is in Pennsylvania. It's a place called Marcus Hook.
Oh yeah,
and that's where Blackbeard kept one of his mistresses. The house is still there. You can see that they're kind of reconstructing it and stuff. And it's a fun little fair, but it's there's like a pirate section where you have like the reenactors, and then there's a stage where all the guys get up and do their pirate songs, and then the rest of it is pretty much like a craft fair.
Okay.
So that I'm imagining that when you go down south or into the Caribbean and they have pirate festivals, there's not a lot in the way of craft fair going on. Unless it's pirate craft. Here, I made these skull beads,
There you go. Yeah, Marcus Hook is interesting. I had Michael Minercha on the show, and he told us all sorts of good ghost stories about that house.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool festival. It's a great place. And again, it's just, it's not one of the big ones, but maybe sometimes big isn't better.
That's right. That's true. Very true. So how did you come into the pirate lifestyle, shall we say? Where do you come? I mean, did you grow up in New Jersey? Did you start there?
Yeah. Yep. Grew up in New Jersey, lived here all of my life, not on purpose.
Yeah.
Just kind of happened that way. It's difficult to say. I mean, I've always been interested in folklore and, European traditional music. So the two kind of mixed together and developed into an interest in history.
Uh-huh.
And so those things kind of all swirled together and led to a musical career that's basically always playing traditional music. I played in rock bands when I was a kid and stuff, but
uh-huh.
they weren't nearly as fun as playing the traditional stuff.
Interesting.
And so, we had a bunch of Celtic bands and stuff like that. And during the run of our last Celtic band, we found ourselves, my brother, who was playing the bodhrán and dulcimer for that band, was really busy with other groups a lot of times. So I decided, okay, now is a good time for me to start doing like a sea shanty group.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, we were doing Revolutionary War reenacting. And so I was like, I want to do this right, and I want to, basically, I'm going to make this like a pirate group, but we're not going to look like Jack Sparrow. Well, Jack Sparrow wasn't around at the time, but we're not going to look like, Captain Hook or anything like that.
Yeah.
I want to throw the same attitude we have when we do Rev War into the pirate thing as we do when we do Rev War.
Uh-huh.
And so that was kind of how it started, really. It was sort of mostly band with costumery, I guess you could say.
Okay. And
very quickly it just became, introducing the living history that we were learning anyway from, doing Rev War and our other interest in history.
Interesting. So it was funny. I was looking at your website earlier on the photos page that you have on there. Is the one thing I noticed was that from the early days in 2005 or so that you had posted in there from till now, the costumes got better and better and better and better.
Yeah. Yep.
It started as jeans and t-shirts.
When we started, we had a bunch of people who didn't know anything about the music or pirates or anything. When I first came up with the idea for the group, it was kind of rough for me to find people going around explaining, well, it's old traditional sea shanties and stuff like that. And people just didn't really seem to care so much. I couldn't find anybody interested. And, I'd talk to this guy and talk to that guy. But then when the Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out, all of a sudden we got the floodgates opened, I guess you could say. So we were loaded with all these people who they just were like, pirate, want to be a pirate, want to be a pirate. And so I had to suddenly come up with a way to make people look like pirates.
Okay.
Because we had all these gigs and stuff, and it's like, here's these dudes who, they don't know nothing about it but movies. They don't know nothing about the music. They're listening to whatever, normal stuff they're listening to. And there was no way in hell they were going to have any reenactment clothes. So it was like, if we put pajamas on that kid and cut them all short, they'll look like slops. So yeah, we had to do a lot of that.
It's funny. That's funny. So, I mean, do you have a regular group of people that you work within, or are you kind of working with a rotating cast of characters? It's
pretty regular, but the periphery is always altering. It's always changing over the years. I mean, so we've got about roughly 15 people, but I can call on a couple more if I need to, and just trying to get 7 of those people out to any one gig is like pulling teeth because we all have lives.
Yeah.
And not all of them are like as dedicated to, this as much as I am. So I'm like, if I'm sitting at home for 2 hours, I'm mad.
Right,
I don't like just sitting around. So I like to play all the time. So I try to fill my calendar as much as I can, and the rest of them are like, dude, I got to go on vacation. I was like, well, you go. I got 14 other people I can work with.
right. That's how my solo career was born. I was like, I don't even want to deal with these other people. I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it.
So so you're starting up this idea of a pirate band, and the band part of it came first because that's your musical background coming into play, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so then how did you go about finding gigs when there's not a pirate scene in your area? How did you kind of create that out of nothing?
That was actually pretty easy because we had been playing traditional European music, like mostly Celtic stuff, Celtic and English stuff, for a long time.
Oh, okay.
And we had been doing the Rev War reenacting for a long time, so we kind of knew a bunch of different venues. And so there, in the very beginning, I would just go to people and be like, yeah, remember that band we were in? Well, we're not really doing that so much anymore. We got this new thing. And they'd be like, all right, bring them in.
Okay.
So it's really funny with this group, and this group's been going on for, I don't know, over 12 years or something. We've never actually sent a demo CD to anyone. We very few times anybody ever asked, is there someplace I can hear you before we go? Everything basically is being based on reputation of what we had built before the band started and what people hear about the band. And so, after a couple of years of playing the places that we had been doing with the previous bands and stuff, then it just became, oh, we've heard about you guys. Yes, we want you.
Okay.
And so, in all honesty, I've never sent a demo CD out to anybody with this group.
Yeah, demos are fairly useless these days, I've found, too. I get most of my gigs the same way.
True.
Yeah, most of my gigs I get the same way. It's either a recommendation or they've heard of me or something like that, and it's always a better way to go. There's, I imagine, little competition in the pirate music sphere where you are. Do you think that kind of helped?
Actually, it went both ways. When we first started doing this, there was little competition, almost none. And so that made it difficult in one way, because if people don't hear something, if it doesn't have a certain group or a certain following, nobody wants to have anything to do with it.
Sure.
It's hard to get somebody to get in on the grassroots of something that they don't know anything about, and they know that the rest of the people don't really care about it. We have to make them care about it. So in the beginning, that was the rough part. But as we've gone on, now there's actually a lot of groups playing sea shanties and sea music. Again, Pirates of the Caribbean movies come out; they get real popular. Everywhere you go, everything is pirates now. So, yeah, I mean, just in the time that we've been playing with this band in our area, we've seen, I don't know, like 8 groups or so just crop up, and then they'll disintegrate for one reason or another, and then some of the guys will show up in another group. So, yeah, and that's true with the music groups as well as the living history type groups, or whatever you want to call, just pirate groups. You'll see them in a group, and then something will go wrong. The leader becomes insane or something, so they all bail ship, and then they start another one, and so two groups come out of that one.
Right.
Kind of like Genesis back in the 80s. Every time somebody left Genesis, there was a whole new band that sounded like Genesis.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of that same thing. So now we go and we're playing places, and there's other people playing pretty much the same songs that we're playing and stuff. And I don't. It's not really a problem because they're doing something interesting. So whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not. It doesn't really end up being competition so much because there's difference in the way people perform things.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So since you're doing very traditional sea shanty stuff, what do you do to differentiate yourself?
I think the first thing would be that we try to do versions of the songs that either aren't the usual one you hear, because we generally tend to go for the older one. Like if you look up a certain song, and you can find the lyrics and the music for it, online or in 1,000 books or whatever. But as you dig, you find that, okay, well, this song came from this song, and so on and so forth. And so what's the older version? What's the original melody of that song?
Oh, I see.
And you know that you don't know the original. You're never going to find the original, but you may find one that's a lot older than the people are using currently. So that's one thing that we do a lot of. We'll try to find a purer version of a song. We try not to learn too many songs from people who have really altered them too much. So, for instance, if you're going to pick up a rock band's version of something, like let's say you pick up a CD by the Pogues and it's got a sea shanty on there. Well, the Pogues are a lot of fun, but that's not really the traditional version of that song usually.
Sure.
So we tend to do a lot more research when it comes to that kind of stuff to get to a more traditional sound. We try to stay away from the arrangements that other people have come up with. We break the song down to its original, just the simplest form, and we build it there from ourselves. We just start doing it, and as we play it, we notice that there's certain things that we want to do to it, and so that's how we change it and make it more our own. Okay. Of course, staying pretty roughly in the traditional field. You got to get a little silly every once in a while.
Sure. And I noticed watching some of your performances that you really do strip the arrangements down to a very minimalist format, where it's mostly voices and then maybe just a little bit of drum or percussion or something like that in there. Do you ever build it out to larger arrangements with more instrumentation?
It's difficult for us to do that. The main reason being, like I said before, we're not really sure who we're going to have for any particular gig. So if we work on an arrangement that requires the guitar to do this, mandolin to do this, tin whistle to do this, bodhrán to do this, whatever else going on, and then I show up and there's only, like me and, the tin whistle player.
Right.
Well, we can't do that, can we? So basically we try to keep it as simple as possible, and then just each guy kind of works on the way that he likes to play that song and embellish it the way that he does.
Okay.
And as long as it doesn't sound too weird, we basically go, hey, that sounded really cool. You should do that more, But that's pretty much it,
I think an advantage of that type of music and doing it that way is it actually comes off as more traditional, because in the time period, it wasn't a band that was gigging together 5 times a week. It was a bunch of dudes in a tavern who happened to show up that night and they're singing together.
Absolutely. You got what you got. It's like if a guy shows up and all he plays is like a trumpet or something, it's like, well, okay, we got a trumpet player. And I guess a lot of people look at a musical group as something where it's the best case scenario. You look at a band like, let's say, going super traditional, you go with the Chieftains, right? Now those guys, they've got everything represented there. They've got it's an ensemble of extremely schooled musicians who play generally more than one instrument each,
right?
And so they're doing something that their ancestors never could have believed.
Right.
Because, it's like you've got all these different guys. You got a fiddler and an uilleann pipe player. Wow, that's just insane. Usually it's just like, hey, well, my neighbor down the street plays fiddle kind of badly on the 2 strings that are left on his fiddle.
Right.
And, I can kind of smack on this drum a little bit, so let's see what we can do. So I try to keep it a little bit in between that. I want to make it sound as palatable to the modern ear as I can, without it just becoming, John Denver.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were the garage bands of yore.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So let's talk about the living history stuff that you do a little bit. How did you start to incorporate that? Was it just because an opportunity presented itself and you went, well, I know some of this stuff? It
did. It was something that I had thought about all along. I knew that I couldn't do it until I had the group kind of off and running, as it were. So basically, we were finding that, well, we're at this event all day and we're playing, let's say, 3 sets of music or something. Well, we've got a lot more to offer because of the knowledge that we've learned over the years about, history and pirates in particular, seafaring and stuff. So we started, putting together display items, where let's bring a pantload of weaponry this time and show off that stuff. And then, all right, let's bring out some, sailor tools. Let's show people some sailor tools. Or, the things that sailors might need to use every day just to get by. Maybe some food stuff, things they would eat and drink out of. And so the collection just kind of kept building. and building, and very quickly became, well, we need like a couple of tables to haul around with us to do that.
And were you buying like replicas of things?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Buying replicas and making things. I think we buy a lot more than we make. We're nearly as handy as we like to think we are. I sometimes we would actually have certain people make things for us. Like, again, when you're in the reenactment thing, you end up knowing people who do just about everything.
Certainly.
So I met a blacksmith who was very easy to talk to about making some pike heads so that we could make some pikes, boarding pikes. And he was like, well, I've never made anything like that before, but I'll sure give it a try. You know, he went to 3 pike heads for me. He was like, is this what you mean? Yep, that's it. So, that sort of thing. So
you're then doing that kind of stuff in between sets at the music gigs?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So at some events, we actually just set up a table and we play at the tables and, basically just look at people and like, you can ask questions when we're done playing, right?
That's the same rule I have at my shows. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
And so what kind of venues are you doing this stuff in?
Mostly like I said, we're doing things at historical venues like Tuckerton Seaport, Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's Philadelphia's best kept secret. Even the city doesn't seem to know that it's there because they won't put a sign up to tell you how to get to it.
Oh my gosh.
But it's an awesome place, and they've got events going almost every weekend from every different time period they can muster. And so we're out there maybe 6 times a year at least doing stuff there. And we do a pirate day there. It's places like that, and then libraries, the odd pirate festival here and there, which again, like I said, in Jersey, you only really get little ones.
Sure.
Heritage days, any kind of history fair, those kind of things where they've got like maybe a timeline or something like that. Those are the places where we're the happiest playing. When we had started, we had talked about playing pubs, and we were all kind of for it, but we've never actually tried to do it. Even when people are like, hey, come down to this pub, we'll be like, yeah, maybe not.
yeah, you're not missing anything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, after doing it for 20 some odd years or whatever, it's not really anything that I'm that interested in. You give me the right pub and I'll play there, be happy about it, but there's not too many of them that I really like to go to.
Yeah, well, I imagine you probably did plenty of that in your rock band days.
And with the Celtic bands, yeah.
Yeah, and those places get tiresome after a while.
Absolutely, yeah. And, I certainly don't mind throwing one in every once in a while, but really it's just not something. The other thing that I hate is weddings.
Oh, yeah.
People are always like, oh, can you do a wedding? And it's like, yeah, no.
I've had people that want me as a comedian at their wedding reception. I'm like, oh, bad idea. No, we're not.
Yeah, right.
We're not doing that.
Where are you going to go with that?
Yeah. That is not a good idea at all. People have lots of bad entertainment ideas for their events.
They do. They get these crazy ideas, and they don't realize a flaming gorilla. That'd be awesome. No, probably not. Maybe you should talk to the venue about that first.
Right. Yeah. You might need a license for your flaming gorilla. There's definitely permits involved. So now, how did you get into you said you were doing like Revolutionary War reenacting and things like that. Did you get into that before getting to the pirate music? Trying to get the timeline straight in my head. Yeah.
We started off doing, like I said, when I was younger, I did rock stuff and then switched over to doing like Celtic music. And while we were doing that, and of course the pirate stuff, the traditional sea shanties and stuff, it's really an offshoot of the Celtic and English heritage.
Certainly,
we started playing some of that stuff all the way back in those days. But you didn't have too many of them. You didn't want to. You just kind of pepper the set here and there with like Drunken Sailor or
right.
One More Day or something like that. And then as we were doing the Celtics thing, a strange thing happened. I had actually met my wife while she was playing the snare drum for a bagpipe band out in Pennsylvania. And so my brother and I joined the band, and he wanted to play the drums because he had been playing drums since he was a little kid. And so he quickly learned how to do all that stuff. Or he actually knew how to do it. He just needed to learn the way that they did it. And I was intending to learn the bagpipes, but as I am a lazy, shiftless bastard, that really never happened. I was like, I'll just stick with the stringed instruments. I'm okay with that. But so my wife, who was playing the drums, and my brother and I were, became a pretty tight unit at that point, just hanging out all the time. And when we would come up with projects, it was always like the three of us doing these things. And so one Celtic band shifted to the next, and that one had at the core my wife, my brother, and I. And so around that time, the guys in the bagpipe band, which was a rather unique bagpipe band anyway, because they used the old rope tension drums that you only see with fifes and drum bands.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, I'm pretty sure there was only one other bagpipe band in the country that played with those. And they were basically a reenactment group / bagpipe band. Gee, I wonder where I got that idea from. And they were out somewhere. I don't even remember where they come from, but it wasn't Jersey. And we saw them once at an event, and we thought they were just really cool guys and stuff. And so yeah, the bagpipe band wanted to modernize. They wanted to get rid of the old rope tension drums and play the modern ones that sound like skateboards going down the sidewalk.
Okay.
And my brother and my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, we're like, yeah, we don't want to do that. We like these drums. So they bought their drums and left the bagpipe band. And then they were like, well, now we have these 18th century drums. What do we do with them? A Rev War group. Okay, so they joined a Rev War reenactment group. And I went along with them. And that was around the time, so we're doing Rev War, and that was the time I was kind of developing my sort of privateer persona in the Rev War reenactment stuff.
Okay.
And I'm really making connections with people. I'm while those guys are doing all the hard work, I'm hanging out with people. I'm talking with people. I'm finding out who's in charge of this place, who's in charge of that place. And so after a year or two, they all get to know me. I'm a fairly friendly guy. And so yeah, once a couple years later, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe it's longer than I think it is. And I started putting this idea back together, or putting it together rather. I went to those guys and I was like, if you're ever doing anything and you want a sea shanty group, let me know. And so they did. So
interesting.
That was basically how it all kind of went down.
The songs that you're doing, how far back do those go? Those are going to be pre-revolution, golden age? I'm trying
well, because of what they are, it's a mix.
Okay.
We've got some that go all the way back. Some sea shanties can actually be traced back to the 1600s and maybe even a little bit earlier.
Okay.
I think there's a couple that they're pretty sure they know happened in the 1500s because of some of the things that are mentioned, and we're like, nobody uses that anymore. They stopped doing that like when King Henry was around.
Okay.
So Henry VIII was around. So we've got a couple that are that old. We've got some that are from the 1700s, the golden age, let's say. But the vast majority of what you're hearing when you're hearing sea shanties are actually collected in the 1800s.
Okay.
So, but most of those are really just the last version. And because once people start writing things down, they don't change as much. So by the time these very clever gentlemen came along and started writing down the folk music that was going on, a lot of those songs were already hundreds of years old.
Certainly. But
they just got the last version of it, and the extrapolations after they were printed and stuff, especially once you get to the 20th century, where they're not being used anymore, so people aren't changing in the way that their ancestors would have been. They're just copying off of records, or they're copying off of sheet music that they find in libraries and stuff. So yeah, a lot of those songs they're actually coming from the 1800s.
Okay.
That some of them, a lot of them have a seed that goes a lot older than that.
Sure. So do you go as far as, if you're doing a Revolutionary War event, to not do an 1800s version of that song and do an appropriate version?
No, not really. Generally what we do to begin with is, we usually, like I was saying before, we kind of look for the older versions.
Right.
So we're kind of already there, but with a lot of the sea shanties, it's difficult to find older versions than the 1800s. So when we are playing an event where everyone is dressed in, let's say, 18th century clothing, we're not going to not sing a line about a railroad, even though it doesn't make sense. You won't see it for another 100 years.
Right.
And the main reason that I don't like changing traditional lyrics for a couple reasons. The main reason being I hear people do it to try to make them sound older, and it just sounds dumb. They think that they're making it sound better, and it's like you're not. You're failing to capture the correct thing. You're a modern person trying to write an old style song, and you're failing. So I don't want to be that guy.
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, we stick pretty much with whatever lyrics we've got. We do often point out the difference, because I'm not, when I'm on stage, I'm not telling anybody that I'm in 1724.
Right.
I'm telling people this is what we're trying to do. I'm the guy that lives down the street from you, and I work in a mailroom. I'm not a guy who lives on a ship, right? So we explain where the songs come from as much as we can, because the way I see our shows, if you don't come out of there learning something, I'm probably going to want to kill you.
That's good. I like that. So, and plus, if you do sing a reference that is 100 years later, you can just go, "Ooh, we're a pirate band from the future," and then it makes it all go away. You just add to the mystique.
Yeah, one could do that, yeah.
That's great, man. So where is the best place online for people to keep up with the stuff that you're doing?
Well, you could go to our website, which is cdogsnj.com.
Cool.
And that's all one big, long thing.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure that's linked up.
Our schedule for the year is mostly complete. There will be a couple add-ons. There always are. There's always the guy who calls you up like a week before and goes like, "Dude, can you come out and play this thing?" No.
I just got one of those yesterday. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I try to get our schedule done by April, but a lot of venues don't look that far in the future. So when our summer is pretty mapped out. When you get to fall, then it's going to get sketchy.
Nice. What do you have coming up towards the end of June into July?
Well, let's see. Like I mentioned, next weekend, the 10th, is the Privateers and Pirates Festival at Tuckerton Seaport.
Uh-huh.
And then what do we got after that? The weekend after that, we're playing the Little Egg Harbor Library. We're doing a little show there.
Okay.
And then the Sunday, that would be the 24th. And then the 25th, we're at a newer pirate thing they're working on in Belmar. It's called the Belmar Pirate Walk. I hope to not be doing too much walking. At least if I'm going to be able to, even out my walking with my drinking, I'll be all right.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's June 25th. We've got a Heritage Day out in the middle of Pennsylvania, a place called Easton.
Okay.
And that's on July 9th. And then there's another new Pirate Day kind of thing. It's the Bradley Beach Pirate Day. And I've not actually been to Bradley Beach, so I really don't know anything about it. But that's on the 29th of July.
Nice.
And then the two that kind of cap off the summer for us, I guess it's not really because September is kind of summer as well. But we've got Pirate Day at Fort Mifflin, which is August 19th, and that's in Philadelphia. They changed the name this year. They're calling it like Seafaring Saturday or something, but to us it's still Pirate Day.
There you go.
And then the weekend after that, which I think would be the 26th, is Seafarers Weekend at Cold Spring Village in Cape May, New Jersey. That's a sort of reconstructed 19th century village, and basically pirates just take it over for the weekend, and we set up our little camp and sleep there and have lots of fun and all that.
Nice. That sounds fun. I'm glad to hear that there's those new events starting in there too, because especially in an area that doesn't have enough. They're little tiny things, but you got to stick with the little tiny one to turn it into something big. Yeah, that's great, man. That's very cool. Well, Del, this has been fun, man. I'm glad we got a chance to talk. Did I miss anything that you want everybody to know about?
Don't think so. It was a pretty thorough interview.
Good. Glad to hear it, man. Great. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I'll talk to you again soon.
You too. Take it easy.
Bye-bye. And there it is, friends. That is my interview with Del Merritt of the Sea Dogs. If you want to find out more about them, go to seadogsnj.com. That's seadogsnj.com. The NJ stands for New Jersey. Did you get that part? I got that part. That's pretty neat. Under the Crossbones today is sponsored by Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast. WKKC-DB. Playing the best music and pirate radio talk. You can listen to this show, Under the Crossbones, on both their stations. Just go to pirateradiooftheTreasureCoast.com or pirateradiotc.com. And don't forget to download their apps. They got good apps. Pirate Radio Treasure Coast, which is their music station, and Pirate Radio Talk, which is their talk station. And plus, I was talking to Dave over there the other day, and you can hear him all sorts of places on Shoutcast, Icecast, Roku, on your TV. The Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast is everywhere. So if there's a search box, put that name in there, and you will find us. Got an ebook for you. This is a good ebook if you've not read it yet. This is Alexander Exquemelin's Pirates of Panama or Buccaneers of America. It comes under 2 titles, so whichever one you prefer is the one you can have. And this is a book originally published in 1678 by Alexander Exquemelin, and is one of the seminal pieces of pirate historical writing. He was a doctor, and he ended up on the pirate ships, and he writes about his time on the pirate ships there in the 1670s, and it's fascinating reading, and you should check it out. You can go to underthecrossbones.com, click on the free ebook button, pick it up right there, or if you're out and about, you can use your cell phone, that little thing that you're listening to me on right now, and text the word pirate and your email address to 94253. Text the word pirate and your email address to 94253. All right, I'm getting ready to do tonight's show number 2 in Medford. And I had last night, it was weird. The audience was a little bit strange. They were cool, but it was like parts of the audience didn't quite like each other. It was very different, lots of different kinds of white people in there. But different there are different kinds of white people. I don't know if you know that, but there were different kinds of white people in there, and the audience itself had a hard time getting along with each other, which was a little bit weird. Plus, I was having like a bad mouth day. Like, you know how some people have like a bad hair day where the hair just won't do what they wanted to? I was having a bad mouth day. Like I kept stumbling over words and just on jokes that I've told 100 times. So weird to just like the lips wouldn't work for some reason. So it was an odd show last night, but it was fun. Tonight's going to be show number 2. I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to work my lips out a little bit and make sure I say things to people today that make sure my lips work. This helps. Talking to you right now actually helps, because sometimes on the road, I don't talk to people like at all. Like I can go a whole day and the only words that come out of my mouth are cheeseburger and fries to go. And I'd like to check in. That could be my entire day's discussion until I get on stage and talk for an hour at night. So that's always a little bit weird. But tonight's show is going to be good. And again, if you want to find out when I'm coming to a town near you, go to underthecrossbones.com/tour dates. Nope, just go to underthecrossbones.com and click on the tour dates button, and that'll take you over to actually my other website where I'll show you all my tour dates there. All right, kids, that is our show for today. Thank you once again for tuning in. I appreciate it. Mucho grande. And I don't even know if that's the correct usage of that term, but I appreciate you a lot for listening in. Things have been growing here at the show very nicely, so that is all because of you. If you want to find out more about my guest, Del Merritt, and his group, the Sea Dogs, go to seadogsnj.com. That's seadogsnj.com, and you too can head out to Jersey and find out what they are doing there. Thanks to everybody around the world that is listening in on the show, whether here or on Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast. And that's it. I'll see you next week. Thanks.